Hello, Lumini here, my very first scripted video. Today we are going to be talking about the Mantles and how I see them, what benefits you get, and what things you should be aware of. Now let's begin. Mantles are a pretty neat addition in Monster Hunter world as they grant pretty great benefits to the wearer. In this video we're going to be skipping over the Elemental Mantles, Bandit Mantle, Challenger, Impact, Evasion, and Apothecary, since their benefits are very straightforward and you don't really sacrifice anything for what they're worth, in my opinion. First up, we'll be talking about the Mantles that have a great benefit, but usually have a single interaction or opportunity cost that the player might not even consider. The tools I'm going to talk about here are going to be Vitality, Immunity, Glider, and Ghillie Mantles. From here, we're going to be talking about in which situation the drawback in question will begin to shine. First, let's start with the Vitality Mantle. At first glance, the Mantle seems to do exactly as it says. It gives you a buffer health bar. However, whenever you boost your HP to 150 or higher, it seems like that the buffer would also match that as well, considering how it encapsulates that very same life bar. Unfortunately, due to some testing, it actually turns out that the Mantle will always give you a fixed 100 HP, and the testing was done with large barrel bombs. At 100 max HP, Vitality gives you 100 HP, and this was tested by exploding 4 large barrel bombs. For you see, 4 bombs kills you, and then 4 bombs gets rid of the Mantle. And then with the same testing at 200 HP, 8 large barrel bombs are needed to kill you, however the same 4 large barrel bombs are still needed to get rid of the Mantle, thus concluding that the Vitality Mantle will only give you a fixed, non-healable 100 HP. Sounds pretty great on paper, until you realize that some of the harder monsters can easily cheese through 100 HP like it's nothing, and of course, once it's gone until it recharges, meaning that you're left with something that gives you no benefit unlike most of the other Mantles. However, it still has its uses as being able to be used if you want to somewhat safely utilize heroics, as it will stay active with your 100 HP buffer, giving you some breathing room for error. Next, we'll talk about the Immunity Mantle. Immunity is pretty great considering that you become immune to all blights. And as great as being immune to every status is, it is a little bit lackluster in regards that for the elemental blights, you can just wear the right elemental mantle, since just about every monster would just inflict one status on you, usually. We'll get to that later. And for my example, both Fireproof Mantle and Immunity Mantle would grant you protection against fire and blast blight. However, Fireproof will also allow you to take reduced damage from fire as well. And then, to top it off, Fireproof and the other elemental proofs last for a total of 3 minutes as opposed to Immunity's 2 minutes, while they both have the same recharge time. The only real reason to use Immunity, in my opinion, would be to rub off Fluvial, Poison, Paralysis, Bleed, Defense Down, and Stun. Still sounds great. Not really, as Defense Down is only done by Joe and Extreme Behemoth, though you have more problems to worry about than those statuses. Poison is done by Raytheon and Puke Puke, both very weak monsters that you could just eat herbal medicine for. And then Bleed is done by both Odogaron and Behemoth. And then again, all you gotta do is just eat some jerky. And lastly, Fluvial is only done by Val Hazak, and in which case, there's actually a pretty valid argument to use it to prevent your HP from being halved. Though, one could argue that you could just solve that with either a Fluvial resistance and some Null Berries, as well as a good old health augment to boot. Now, that just leaves immunity to Stun, which every monster can do, except for one problem. Rocksteady exists. Even with all the caveats I've listed to exist to kind of downplay using immunity, the one thing that should not be ignored is that the Mantle should be treated as an immunity to stun plus whatever blight the monster wants to grudge. In fact, I think some of the best cases for immunity Mantle would be areas with the Paralysis Frog, Gajalakas, you don't have to worry about getting status by those guys. Both of the Rats, because they'll do poison and fire. In this case, I have an example of Azure Raptor just absolutely kicking my teeth in. I'm not getting stunned, I'm not getting burned, and I'm not getting poisoned. And without it, you can definitely expect to be inflicted with all three. And now that I actually think about it, immunity is actually pretty good against Behemoth since he can do just about every status on you despite the other Mantle being better at protecting you. So despite the individual reasons I'm not using immunity, I think it's safe to say that it really shines when multiple statuses start to get thrown into the fight. Now it's time for the Batman cape, the Glider Mantle. The positives of the Glider Mantle are pretty clear. You get to glide around, giving you more airtime to perform some aerial attacks with the added benefit for much easier mounting. However, the thing about this mantle is that that very same advantage of being able to float in the air is also a disadvantage. Having more airtime means that you can't maneuver your character around as easily, thus making you a little bit more susceptible to fast attacks. Like, using the glider mantle in the Coral Highlands has the benefit of being able to utilize the air geysers on the map. However, if you're not mindful in that very last area at the top, you could find yourself rolling into an air geyser when you don't want to and just start floating around. And then in terms of spamming aerial attacks, you're probably better off utilizing either Rocksteady or Temporal Mantles as they both prevent knockback in the air. But again, the biggest thing that Glider has going for it is team support with more mounts. Definitely handy against Behemoth or any other monsters that give you trouble. And on that note, while recording this video, I didn't give Glider Mantle enough credit. Turns out, you can actually cancel the glide with X to get to the ground quickly. Pretty handy for sure to let you regain control, and then not only that, but I didn't realize that it's actually pretty handy for navigating the Coral Highlands, since if you were to start from a higher place, it can at least help you skip some of the ledges and reduce your climbing time. And then lastly, did you know that you can also glide off the walls and slopes? I mean, I'm not sure if you knew, but it was definitely news to me. Now we are at the Ghillie Mantle, the last of the mantles with a pretty straightforward benefit, with an obvious draw. You're essentially invisible to the monsters unless you get way too close to them, get hit, or attack. Pretty straightforward. Either utilize the mantle at the beginning for a sweet setup of bombs, traps, and other various things, or you can use it in the middle for those same reasons and to heal up, sharpen, collect your pots, it doesn't matter. The only thing though is that for that get out of jail free card or the one-time stealth, you are given up a slot for something that could be more beneficial to you, either like Evasion Mantle or Impact Mantle, or even just an Immunity Mantle or any of the Ellie proofs. And then, whenever you do use the get out of jail free card in the middle of the fight, you have to make sure that you're not going to get hit by the monster's following attack. And then, to top it off, they're actually going to be actively seeking you out. Or at least I'm not sure if every monster will try to seek you out, but definitely Pink Raytheon, Anjanath, just any monster that has a developed nose for sure. And now we're going to be getting to the two big boy mantles that everyone loves to love and loves to hate. Rocksteady and Temporal Mantles. First we're going to start with Rocksteady Mantle. It's a very powerful mantle that can knock back with any sword. The only exception to this is Xeno'jiiva's body slam, because, let's be honest, how the hell are you going to stand tall when a building falls on you? That being said, with no knockback, it means that you don't have to worry about roars, tremors, or any sort of attack, as long as you keep your HP in check. Now, Rocksteady Mantle is a huge double-edged sword. The very thing that the mantle protects you from is also its weakness. To clarify, we need to take a look at how Monster Hunter's mechanics work whenever you're on the receiving end of taking damage. Whenever you take damage of any sort, you are knocked out. Everyone knows this, and they won't dispute this. However, whenever you are knocked back, you receive invincibility frames for the duration of the animation. This is done as a way to protect players from being bombarded from multi-hit attacks. First example I would have to point out would have to be Odogaron. Even though he is a fairly simple monster with pretty easy to dodge attacks, getting hit by his claws is rather disastrous. The worst case scenario for utilizing the Rocksteady Mantle against him is that if you're in front of him and he does his left swipe, right swipe attacks, that does have a high probability of giving you bleed. And then whenever you're now bleeding, he's actually going to usually combo that with a third attack, which is typically he jumps backwards. So not only do you have to worry about those two attacks, but now you're bleeding. If you dodge, you'll take a little bit of damage. If you don't dodge, you'll still take damage. And if you don't heal up that jerky, the more he attacks you and the more you try to get out of the way, the worse it's going to be for you. While without it, he would just hit you once, you may or may not get bleed, but then the second and third attack will more than likely phase you harmlessly. With that being said, now let's transition to the next weakness that comes as a result of not having any knockback, and that's taking damage from multiple damage sources. Now, for these two examples, it's going to have to be Basilgeuse and Lunastra. With Basil, his scales become exponentially more dangerous, as you're going to be taking damage from multiple damage sources in quick succession. The worst attacks to tank would have to be the full body slam where he drops a large handful of scales and then slams himself on it. Or typically whenever he's doing his flying, dropping the scales everywhere, and then he dive bombs, and the last one would be whenever he takes a couple steps back, drops some scales while he's at it, and then sets them all off. Now, the thing about them is that whenever Basil is dropping his scales, if they all explode at the same time, you're safe, because that only counts as one source of damage. However, if they all start going off one after another, then you're going to start taking damage from every single one of those, and that can easily bring you to near death or even death from full HP. And then with Lunastra, even though she's already a pain in the ass with flaming, the flames become even deadlier, since you'll be taking damage from multiple sources as well as the Elder herself, since you're not getting knocked over by just one attack. And then top it off, you also have to worry about the residual damage from the flame. Especially in a multiplayer setting, this can be more of a death sentence, since your allies will have a rougher time trying to heal you, and with how poor her hits are, it becomes difficult to heal back with a constant stream of damage. Another example of a very dangerous target to use Rocksteady on is Kieran. Every Thunderbolt has a chance of paralyzing you, and if you end up tanking multiple Thunder Strikes at once instead of the first one that hits you, then you'll be in a world of pain. But regardless, the Mantle in itself is still extremely strong. The big thing I would want you to take away from listening to this is that Rocksteady punishes you for being too reckless. You can't be mindless when attacking, or else it will get you killed faster than just taking the knockback. Personally, I prefer using Rocksteady more along the lines of a Tremor and Roar Resistance Mantle with the added bonus of not being knocked back. That way you don't get too terribly reckless and you can still keep up the aggression. Next on our list is Temporal Mantle. With the Temporal Mantle, any move with any sort of a considerable knockback will trigger the Adept Evade. It's pretty straightforward in the description, and where if you take a heavy attack, it'll dodge for it. However, this is both a blessing and a curse. People will mistake a heavy attack for something that does a lot of damage. However, if referring to the knockback that you would take from a move, example being that Behemoth can easily chip you down to 0 with his Fist Swipe, as it only causes a small knockback but large damage. This blessing to avoid damage can also be bad, since it can cancel you out of any large attacks with huge windups, such as when you're about to get that golf swing in. However, instead of the attack following through, you get whisked away. This will lead into the next weakness, and where your attacks need a bit of time to pull through, and you can find a lot of your attacks being interrupted. As such, usually the faster weapons like Dual Blades, Lance, and Sword and Shield tend to benefit the most, as their strong attacks are very quick to access. In fact, the interesting thing about Temporal is that since it acts upon a knockback basis, it means that you can't get knocked back in the air with damage. This will also allow the user of any aerial attacks the freedom to do whatever the hell they want when they get in the air, such as the constant jump shield bashing from Sword and Shield, Helm Splitter for Longsword, vaulting with Insect Glaive, and any action with any weapon that involves you jumping off of a slope or ledge. Now, another weakness of the Mantle is that it's not immune to any sort of aura damage from Tiastra, Lunastra, or Balthazar. So, when they whack you with a light attack, then you can say goodbye to all of your HP. Well, in Val's case, anything that whacks you, you can say bye to half of your HP. And with the dodge canceling any animation, it can cancel you out of your potion and potentially put you in a bad spot. Though interestingly enough though, the Adept Evade itself will also allow you to become immune to Aura and Lunastra's flame damage, so if you're running Balthazar's Super Recovery with lots of recovery speed, then you can expect to see your HP return in the animation. And that's that. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope that you were able to learn something, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.